This is Trapped Under the Christmas Tree, Christmas Tree, Pennsylvania, Sweet Romantic Comedy, Book 1. Written by Jessie Gussman. Performed by Jay Dyess. Chapter 1. Jake. I'm not really sure how it happened, but somehow I got roped into decorating the town Christmas tree. This wouldn't be such a bad thing if I didn't live in the town of Christmas Tree, Pennsylvania. We take our town Christmas tree seriously. Unfortunately, the day I'm supposed to start decorating, there's an accident on I-80, which is not far from our town. All of our firemen, first responders, and basically the entire town rushed off to that emergency because we're a small town and neighbors help neighbors, even if they're strangers who just happen to be on the interstate that neighbors our town. Regardless, I'm left alone on a cold Monday evening, a giant Christmas tree in front of me, and tons of decorations, ladders, tinsel, lights, and everything that a person would need to decorate a tree except help. But I am nothing if not resourceful, and I decide that even if it takes me all night, I will have this tree decorated come morning. Sometimes I'm not very smart. This thought occurs to me as I move one of those super tall ladders over to the side of the tree and climb up. First of all, the ladder can only get so close to the bottom of the tree, but the tree tapers, so by the time you get to the top of the ladder, you're much farther from the top of the tree than you are from the bottom. Second, it would almost take 2 or 3 people on ladders to string the lights around the tree. But my mother always said I was stubborn. I suppose she's right, although I always like to think of it as determined. I have the ability to persevere, to overcome obstacles, to not quit. You know, I'm all the positive spin you can put on something like stubbornness. But Mom was right. I am stubborn. That's how I ended up leaning away from my ladder toward the tree, trying to put the string of lights as far around as I can get so I can set up another ladder, grab the lights, and continue stringing them. It's been a hot minute since I was on a ladder, and as I'm focusing on trying to get the lights exactly where I want them, my ladder tilts. I jerk up trying to ride it, overcorrect, which isn't surprising, and the ladder starts to tilt the other way. I, again, overcorrect and dive toward the Christmas tree. The ladder continues to fall away, going right out from underneath me while I fall into the Christmas tree. I know it was stable. I helped put it on the stand that our town uses every year to keep our large Christmas tree upright. But I suppose a 180-pound man wasn't supposed to crash into the tree either, because the tree and I go tumbling down. I don't really get hurt as I fall to the ground, but somehow I end up underneath the tree. I can push myself out from under the branches, except one foot is stuck. There are pine needles all around me, and the scent of pine fills the air. Normally, I enjoy that scent, and normally I would enjoy a peaceful evening hanging out in my hometown. I love this place. It's small enough to be cozy, but large enough to have everything you need so you don't ever have to leave, including a grocery store, a dollar store, and a downtown that hasn't been decimated by a bypass. The town square is the most beautiful place you can imagine, and it's very romantic if I do say so myself. I've taken more than a couple of dates to this very spot. But the stone underneath my back is freezing cold, and I'm reminded that the weather forecast was on the verge of whether we're going to have rain or whether it's going to end up as sleet or freezing rain. That's typical for this time of year in PA, and I didn't really think too much about it when I heard. It isn't supposed to start until after midnight, and by that time I figured I would be long done with decorating this thing. But I hadn't counted on the emergency in the next town over, all of my help leaving me, and me doing something stupid like deciding to decorate the tree anyway. All that adds up to the perfect storm, where I'm now lying on the cold, romantic stones in the middle of Christmas Tree's town square, trapped under the Christmas tree that I was supposed to be decorating. I can't even call anyone, because when I fell, my phone must have fallen out of my pocket, since I can see it lying on the stones, at least 10 feet away from me, right beside the splayed-out ladder. The town is deserted. Everyone has been advised to stay inside because of the potential ice storm. I close my eyes and shake my head. I know I'm supposed to be grateful that I'm not hurt, because I'm not, which is a small miracle in itself. But I can't get my foot out from underneath the tree. I try again, tugging and pulling and twisting, thankful that I had the foresight to wear my work boots. I own the reindeer farm just north of town. Of course, we have horses and beef cattle on it too, which are our main moneymakers. But I also provide the reindeer for the Christmas tree farm and for various displays that the town has throughout the year. Because when your town name is Christmas Tree, you don't just celebrate Christmas at Christmas time. It's a year-round adventure. Anyway, my work boots probably prevented my ankle from being broken, but even if I could slip my foot out of my boot, I don't think I could get it out from underneath the tree. I'm frustrated. What in the world am I going to do? I can't hardly yell for help. There probably are people who would come, but there's no one who could actually help me. None of the old ladies or elderly couples who live within yelling distance would be able to do more than stand and stare at me. And while I don't mind being the center of attention, I don't particularly want to be the center of attention where everyone is just staring at me and can't help. There is the possibility that they would be able to call someone, but all of our rescue equipment has gone to the accident in the next town, including Bob Turner's truss truck, the vehicle he uses to lift cars and trucks out of desperate positions after they've been in an accident, and he also uses it to put trusses on buildings. Talk about a good side gig. Anyway, Bob and I are good friends, and that's kind of what I feel like I'm going to need right now. Bob's crane to get this tree off of me. There is the possibility that someone could use a chainsaw, but I know how much the town paid for this tree, and I don't want it to be ruined. It's quite probable that the tree can be set back up and used, unless they destroy it trying to rescue me. I'm used to being the strong one. I'm not used to being the one who needs to be rescued. It's an uncomfortable position. Chapter 2. Tessa. I have both hands wrapped around the cup of warm hot chocolate as I breathe deeply of its scent. Rich and thick, the smell of chocolate wraps around my nose and flows to my heart and brain and makes me feel warm and good inside, and I haven't even tasted it yet. Aside from being the town librarian, my special superpower is my secret family recipe for hot chocolate. This superpower comes in handy in a town named Christmas Tree, but it's not exactly financially profitable. People don't pay me for my hot chocolate. They just expect me to show up when the town is having anything Christmas-related, which is pretty much at least once a month, since, because of the town's name, we capitalize on it as much as we can. After all, we're in the mountains of northern Pennsylvania, and it's not exactly a huge tourist pathway. A thunderous crash interrupts me as I'm just about to take the first sip. It sounds like it came from the town square. My apartment over the Christmas shop overlooks the town square.
It's not as beautiful as a mountain view might be, and it's not overlooking a stream of any kind, which would be my ideal. But they do have a beautiful fountain going in the town square once all danger of a freeze has passed in the spring, and they shut it down about October in the fall. They do that so that they can put up the massive Christmas tree that our town has every year. It's kind of a wonder they don't take the town fountain out and replace it with a year-round Christmas tree. But our tree is always alive, always grown on our local Christmas tree farm, and always huge. I know tonight was the night that they were supposed to be decorating it, but after our entire fire company, first responders, and crews were called out for an accident down on I-80, I figured that was all canceled. But as I mosey to the window, I see that the tree has fallen over. It's a good thing it was canceled. Somebody might have gotten hurt or trapped under that heavy thing. It's huge, although if they said how much it weighs, I can't remember. A lot of times they'll have all the details of the tree on an information sheet I hang up in the library. It'll say how old it was, when it was planted, where it was grown in as a seedling, and how much it weighs, among other things. This year, it is a giant Douglas fir, but I haven't gotten the information sheet yet, so that's all I know about it. When you live in a town named Christmas Tree, you have a tendency to be able to look at evergreen trees and know exactly what kind you're looking at. I'm about to turn away from the window since there's nothing I can do. That tree is way too heavy for me to lift, something I know from past information sheets talking about how heavy the trees are. It will have to be lifted up by a crane. Probably Bob Turner will be there in the town square tomorrow with his truck that is most likely helping with the accident right now. But just as I turn away from the sparkling lights and cozy scene of our town square, I think I see something red wiggle under the tree. It can't be. No one was out there. Everyone had headed to the emergency, or else they were staying home because of the storm coming. But as I look closer, leaning over my hot chocolate and pressing my face to the glass, I think that I do indeed see something moving. And then I see the overturned ladder. Was someone trying to decorate the tree by themselves? I scan the area but only see one ladder, unless the second one was caught under the tree when it fell. But no, I think that's a person. I'm already in my cozy, warm flannel jammies, wearing big, goofy socks. The kind of outfit that will keep me warm so I can turn my thermostat down low and not use too much heat. I love being a librarian, but in a small town like Christmas Tree, it doesn't pay much. I'm guessing that it probably doesn't pay much no matter where you work, but I don't know that for sure. I just know I didn't become a librarian because I love money. I became a librarian because I love books. Regardless, money or no money, I can't just stay up here in my nice, cozy apartment while someone could possibly be trapped underneath the tree down in the town square. There's no way I could sleep. After another look around to confirm that there really isn't anyone else in the vicinity, I sigh, set my hot chocolate down, stuff my big, fluffy socks into my winter boots, grab my coat from the rack by the door, and shove a hat down over top of my head. Hopefully, I'm dead wrong about this, and I'll be back drinking my hot chocolate before it gets cold.
Chapter 3. Jake. I've just about resorted to screaming. I don't know if you have ever been trapped, but for me, I feel very claustrophobic, like a panic that eats at my chest because I can't move, and I want to. I want to be able to just get up and walk away from this. Not that I wouldn't help clean up the tree. because obviously I made this mess, and I will take responsibility for it, but I don't want to be stuck under here. Maybe there's a small bit of me that doesn't want to be stuck here by myself. I am an extrovert. I love people. And I don't brag about this, but Christmas Tree has crowned me the town's most eligible bachelor for the last 3 years running at the annual Christmas Tree Christmas Festival and Dance. Not that I put a whole lot of stock in that, but I'm a popular guy around town and not used to being alone. I take a deep breath. I am not going to freak out. Not only would that ruin my cool dude reputation, but it's not the kind of person I want to be. Still, I consider myself resourceful. I already told you my mom calls me stubborn and determined, but as hard as I racked my brain, I haven't been able to figure out how to get out from underneath this tree. I am good and stuck. Not to mention, every time I move, pine needles jab into me somewhere. Douglas fir are known for having tightly packed branches, and their short needles seem to be everywhere. I'm gritting my teeth, trying to figure out how I can leverage something underneath the tree to get it off my foot, when I hear a soft voice behind me.
Excuse me.
I'm kind of on my side, but I twist to look to see who's talking to me. It's a woman, I know that, and I'm guessing it's one of the older ladies who live above the town square. But I'm wrong. I twist, looking up, squinting as I try to make out the face of the person behind me. One of the Christmas stars that hang on the light poles around the town square has framed her head, and it's not until she shifts a bit and blocks the glare that I'm able to see that it is Tessa, the town librarian. I haven't talked to her much. She's kind of the opposite of me, where she avoids crowds of people and I thrive on them. I know her by face and name, since it is a small town, but I haven't really talked to her ever that I can remember. She was a couple of grades younger than me in high school, and honestly, she's just one of those people that are quiet and kind of content to sit in the corner. Still, I can't deny that I'm happy to see her. My rescuer has arrived, I say, trying to sound gallant but thinking I probably sound ridiculous. Although I'm one of those people that could probably pull it off, despite the fact that I'm flat out on the ground, a tree pinning me down. I think her cheeks turn pink, and I figure that my charm is probably working, despite my awkward position. Either that, or it's cold out. It's definitely cold out.
I'm not sure I can do anything,
she says, her brows drawn together and a worry line or two appearing between them as her gaze slips from me to the tree. She pulls a lip in between her teeth, chewing on it. I should not be distracted by that, considering my position, but somehow I am. She moves without saying anything more, apparently so she can get a better look. The tree is lying over top of my one leg. I don't think anything is broken and it doesn't hurt, but it's weighing me down to the point where I can't even slip my foot out.
If I unlace your boot, do you think you could pull your foot out of it?
She asks, and I appreciate the fact that she's obviously thinking about things, but I've already considered that option. Even if we could reach my boot to untie it, which would be hard because it's flush against the tree, I don't think I can move my leg out from underneath it. It's pressing down fairly hard.
I see,
she says, carefully stepping between the branches of the tree, examining it where it lies on my leg. I appreciate the fact she's wearing boots too. We live in northern Pennsylvania, so we're used to snow and ice and cold all winter long. I kind of think she might have flannel pajama pants on. It's only 8 o'clock. Normal people aren't in their jammies already, are they?
I heard a big crash from my apartment, and I almost just shrugged and went to bed. But I thought I saw something moving. It's a good thing you're wearing that red plaid flannel.
I wasn't expecting her to strike up a conversation with me, and I guess I'm a little bit off my game because normally I would be the one doing all the talking. Nevertheless, I'm not usually at a loss for words. You live in an apartment around here? I'm sure she hears the incredulity in my voice. I thought that only seniors and old people lived in town.
Yeah, right above the Christmas shop. Gigi is just across the hall from me,
she says, naming the owner of the Christmas shop. Well, shows what I know.
I can try calling, but I think we both know that there isn't anyone who's going to be coming anytime soon.
She's absolutely right. We've lived above I-80 long enough to know that when there's a pileup there, all of our town's resources are directed that way, and rightfully so. A lot of times, it's a mess to get things untangled. What if you just try lifting it up? Maybe you can get it up enough that I can slip my foot out. Chapter 4.
Tessa. Jake's suggestion is perfectly reasonable. I know this, and yet I know that there is almost no way that I'm going to be able to lift this tree, and I really don't want to throw my back out trying. Jake Bilmer is such a charmer. He's the current crown holder of the most eligible bachelor in town, and I'm pretty sure he's won it a few times. All right, I know exactly how many times he's won it. I know exactly what year he graduated, and I know exactly where he lives and everything about him. But there's a part of me that doesn't want to admit this, because I know he probably barely knows my name. He certainly didn't know where I lived and sounded shocked when he found out that it wasn't that far away. Still, I doubt I'm the only person in town who has a secret crush on Jake. In fact, pretty much everyone I know is either married or secretly in love with Jake. I hear about it in the library all the time. He is the main person patrons love to gossip about. Did you hear what Jake did now? Did you hear how Jake did this? Did you hear that Jake donated to this or that? And of course, there are the reindeer that he raises who have won awards for their antlers. Not just state awards, but national awards. That has brought attention to our small town, and people come here just to see his reindeer. He generously allows them to be stabled at different places, the tree farm, even in the town square for Christmas in July. Of course, reindeer lose their antlers every year, so the reindeer are just growing them at that time. Still, people come, and Jake has kept all of the antlers that they've lost. Those are a big draw, too. Okay, enough about Jake. So I have a little crush on him. Who doesn't? Let me see what I can do, I say, like I'm going to turn him down for anything. Actually, I think I would. I might have a little crush, and I might be quiet, and I might enjoy reading a book in a corner versus going to a lot of parties and having a lot of people around. But that doesn't mean I'm a pushover. I step over the tree so that I have one foot on one side and one foot on the other. I almost lose my balance, and thankfully I'm able to catch myself before I fall down on top of the tree. If I did that, I'm sure Jake wouldn't be able to figure out whether I was trying to help him or hurt him. I know which I'm doing, but I guess I'm a little clumsy too. Anyway, I get one foot balanced on one side of the tree and one foot balanced on the other side of the tree, and I'm able to link my hands underneath the tree. I'm just a few short inches from where his foot is stuck, so if I'm able to lift the tree up even a little bit, he'll be able to get out. All right, on the count of 3, I'm going to lift up. 1, 2, 3. I might as well not have counted. Absolutely nothing changed as I put all of my strength I have into lifting the tree. It's stubbornly stuck, and it does not budge. Still, I glance up at him and say, "Could you feel it lifting up at all?" He shakes his head no, his lips pressed down tight, his face showing his obvious disappointment. "Let's try it again." I don't know what else to do.
That's enough. It's too heavy. I don't want you to hurt yourself. I'll be okay.
I didn't bring my phone out, but I can go in and call. We both know that it's not going to do any good, other than to get him on the wait list for the first person who comes back. They're going to be tired and quite possibly traumatized if the wreck is as bad as what I fear it could be.
Mine is lying over there, although I dropped it when I fell off the ladder, so I'm not sure if it's even going to work.
Those things are indestructible. I'm sure it's just fine. I say that as I carefully lift my leg over the top of the Christmas tree, trying not to step on any branches as I walk out. I don't want to do anything that will put any more weight on his leg. He hasn't said anything about it hurting, but it has to. Possibly it's even broken. And there I was thinking about my crush and not trying harder to get him out from underneath it. "Do you think your leg is broken?" I ask, realizing I probably should have asked if anything was broken before I started trying to help. It's obvious I'm not a first responder.
I actually feel okay, considering how high I was up on the ladder before I fell, and considering that I have a tree sitting on top of my leg. But no, I feel like I fell down, but not like I'm in any kind of major pain.
I nod, and then I walk to his phone. So much for thinking that those things are indestructible. It's smashed. I grit my teeth and turn, an expression of apology on my face. His eyes move from the phone in my hands to my face, then back to his phone, but his face is already fallen. He knows what my expression means.
Chapter 5. Jake. Tessa does not have to open her mouth for me to know that my phone is not usable. I can tell from the expression on her face. I never noticed how animated her face is. She seems so quiet and mousy, but her expressions convey more than her words do. And her eyes look deeply brown in the Christmas lights that sparkle around the town square. I don't know why I'm thinking about her lip and now her eyes when I'm in such an uncomfortable position. If that weren't bad enough, she's still holding my broken phone, and we're still looking at each other, and the first drops of rain start to fall. She notices them too and looks up, her hand out, like she's going to catch raindrops in her hand.
"I don't think that's rain,"
she says quietly. My lips tighten. That makes my chances of a quick rescue even slimmer. Great! I suppose I'm going to end up dying from hypothermia.
"That's something I can control,"
she says, determination coming over her face. I appreciate the fact that I have someone who is not having the vapors or flipping out just because she is in a situation that is uncomfortable. "I don't know how," I say. I guess it's my way of asking her what exactly she means.
"Let me give you this. You can see if it works. But even if it does, I'm not sure you're going to be able to do anything with your screen cracked the way it is."
I have a screen protector on it. Maybe it's just that that's cracked. She hands me my phone, and I press the side button, but it doesn't even turn on. This is not good. "Let me see if I can get the screen protector off," I say, leaning on my elbow and working in my awkward partial lying position.
I can try if you want me to, she says, after she watches my fumbling for a minute or two. Thankfully, the rain hasn't started in earnest, and it's just little drops. It would be really nice if the weather forecast was completely wrong and we only get a few drops and not the quarter-inch of ice that they were forecasting if the temperatures didn't cooperate. After 2 more failed attempts, I hand my phone to her. Maybe I'm colder than I thought I was. I guess I hadn't really thought about it until I couldn't use my hands very well, but I've been lying here on these cold stones, and it is really chilly out. I can feel my mouth wanting to shiver. I grip my jaw instead. Tessa kneels down beside me so I can see the phone in her hands as she works with it. I don't have anything on my phone that's private or secret, and I'm not sure if she's doing it because she's afraid there is, or if she's just being considerate since it's my phone. So I don't hand that out to just anyone, I say, trying to sound charming. I think I fail. I should feel special then, she says, and while she doesn't sound cheerful, she does give me a little smile that somehow bolsters my spirits. It's not huge, which probably would have made me feel like she isn't concerned about my predicament, but it's big enough to let me know that she feels confident in what she's doing. Somehow that confidence leaches into me, and it makes me feel good about this too. She's going to help me, and that's very reassuring. Oh no, she says softly as she peels the broken and cracked screen protector off. Bits of your screen are coming off. I'm pretty sure we can safely say that it's cracked beyond repair. She shows me as she pulls the screen protector off part way and then seals it back up. I kind of figured when it didn't turn on that it was toast, but I admit my optimism was holding out for a miraculous recovery. I like optimism, she says. Then she lifts a shoulder. This isn't going to help us, but I have a phone, and I have some other things in my apartment that will help keep you warm and make you more comfortable. If you don't mind if I leave for a minute or two? No, I'm all about staying warm and comfortable. She laughs a little. As warm and comfortable as a person can be while they're lying underneath a giant Christmas tree on cold stones with freezing rain coming down on top of them. She doesn't mess around but straightens up, laying my phone over by the ladder as she walks away. I have to admit, as she leaves, she takes a little bit of the sunshine with her. I'm normally a very optimistic person, but it's easy to fall into a trap of negative thoughts when a person is stuck and facing the prospect of hypothermia in a small town that would normally be down one's throat helping. But surprisingly, the way things worked out tonight, there's not a soul around. I can't wait until she comes back. Chapter 6. Tessa. I try not to run away from Jake. I feel like he might not realize that he's even hurt. Perhaps his brain has locked out the pain. Nevertheless, there is also the very real danger of him getting hypothermia, if not going into shock, since the temperature is below freezing and precipitation is falling from the sky. I always prefer snow over ice, but today doubly so. And normally, I love snow. This might be the first time in my life where I hope that we actually don't get any. I know that's not good for our town, but I'm concerned about Jake. I rush to my apartment, my brain scrambling for the things I might need. My phone, definitely. There's always a chance that calling 911 will get us somewhere. I grab it and throw it in my back pocket. Even if I get through and they send someone, he should be sheltered from the freezing rain, and I rack my brain trying to think of something that will work. A garbage bag? My eyes scan around my apartment, and I see the blankets that I had bought for my 2 sisters for Christmas. Those, along with the comforter on my bed, will work to cover him, keep him warm, and maybe even get something between him and the cold stones. I grabbed them, figuring that if I have to buy new gifts for my sisters, or if I have to tell my sisters what happened to their gifts, it'll be okay. What else? I see the hot chocolate on the counter, steam still coming off the cup. I had made enough for 2 cups, and I grabbed travel mugs out of the cupboard, pour the rest of the hot chocolate in them, and snap the lids closed. What about the rain? And then I remember my niece. She asked for a tent for Christmas, and while I probably can't put the tent up and get us in it, since the tree will block that, I can at least get the tent and spread it over top of him to protect him from the ice coming down. I guess it's a good thing it's close to Christmas, and my gifts are lying around my house. I grabbed the tent from the closet where I had stored it, and with my arm full of things I think will help, I hurry back out of my apartment, trying to juggle the blankets and the coffee mugs in the tent, but the phone is probably the most important thing. Maybe I should have called 911, but I wanted to get him covered, and I'm glad I hurried. The freezing rain is coming down harder, and the sidewalk is already slippery as I step out. I can't rush to him, or my feet will go out from underneath me, so I walk carefully. I'm an old hand at walking on ice. Growing up in northern PA, you get good at stuff like this. Plus, I love ice skating. Our town might be small, but we have a beautiful ice skating rink. We don't even have a hockey team or anything. It's just a place where the locals love to hang out. It's open air and frozen from the bottom up, which enables us to ice skate almost year-round. It doesn't stay frozen in the summer, but fall, winter, and spring, the rink is open, and I've been skating since I was born. I don't remember a time when I wasn't on the ice, even if I wasn't wearing skates. I have plenty of time to think about that as I'm headed across the road. The town square is still deserted, and I'm concerned about Jake as I get closer. He seems to be trying to move, to keep himself warm, I assume. I'm back, I say a little breathlessly, not because I was rushing so fast, but because I'm nervous. I am not a first responder or anything close, and I hope I'm doing the right things.
I'm freezing,
Jake says immediately, and I can see that he's clenching his teeth in order to keep them from shivering. All right, I brought some blankets and some hot chocolate. I also have my phone, and I'll call 911.
I'll take the hot chocolate,
he says immediately. He might be cold, but there's a gleam in his eye. Everyone in town knows about my hot chocolate. All right, here you go, and I'll set these within arm's reach, I say as I set the blankets down. I reach in my pocket and pull out my phone. I dial 911 and wait patiently for someone to answer. Christmas Tree Emergency Center, a familiar voice says. Hey there, Rita, I say. Rita and I have been friends for years. Tessa? Rita sounds shocked. Yeah, it's me. I don't suppose you have anyone available. I can patch someone in from the next county over, she says, leaving her statement open-ended, allowing me to make that decision. I don't know. What I'd really like to have is Bob Turner. He's at the crash on I-80, Rita says immediately. I thought so. The Christmas tree in the town square has fallen down, and Jake Bilmer is trapped underneath it. Is he hurt? I lift my brows at Jake, who looks at me and shakes his head no. He says he's not, but the tree is lying on his leg, and it's in such a way that he can't get his foot out at all. We even thought about slipping his foot out of his boot, but we just can't. Oh, goodness. That sounds terrible. And it's freezing rain out. I know. I think we're good, though. I have blankets and hot chocolate and the tent I got Kylie for Christmas. Are you serious? Rita says, a little bit more relaxed now that she knows that my emergency isn't a life-threatening thing. Yeah, I didn't know what else to use. I was thinking garbage bags, but I think the tent will be much better, I say, seeing that Jake has gotten a blanket out and is trying to shift it so that it's underneath him. I put the phone on speaker, set it down, and help him adjust it. I'll send someone out as soon as I can. I can page the next county, but I'm guessing that Dave probably sent people to the I-80 accident as well. Tell them to be careful. The roads are already slippery here in town. I just crossed them, and I could have used my ice skates. That might have been an exaggeration, but it really is slippery. All right, I'll be sure to warn anyone I talk to. I'll send someone out as soon as I can, Rita says. Thanks. We hang up. I press off on my phone as I continue to tuck the blanket underneath Jake.
It's nice to get off these cold stones,
he says. I can hear the shivering in his voice, and I have to admit, I'm worried. The hot chocolate should have warmed him more. I think moving around is probably helpful for you, I say, hoping that gets his blood flowing and he gets warm.
Yeah, it hurts a little when I twist my leg. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just in an awkward position.
I can see that from the way the tree is lying on it and the way it's trapped underneath it. I think we have this pretty well underneath you. I'm going to set 2 blankets on top of you, and then I'm going to put this tent over them.
What are you going to do?
He asks, looking at me. And something warm unfurls in my heart. He is the one who's trapped under the tree, and yet he cares about me. I don't want to leave you.
I appreciate that. I'm not usually upset about being by myself, but I've never been trapped under a tree before.
Then an idea comes to me that I really don't like, but I know will be helpful. I'll lie down beside you. I can share my body heat, and I'll arrange the tent and the blankets on top of us. He pauses for just a moment, hesitating, as though the idea is as foreign and crazy to him as it is to me.
I'm freezing, and that actually sounds really good.
Why don't you drink the rest of your hot chocolate? I think that if we're here for very long, he's going to have to use the restroom, and that might get awkward. But for now, getting him warm is paramount. We'll deal with the repercussions later if we have to. I'm not expecting his rescue to take more than a few hours. Even if they have to send someone to cut the tree. Bob might be busy all night at the accident. I don't even know exactly what's going on there, other than it must be big for everyone to be there.
Yes, ma'am,
he says, lifting the travel mug to his lips and drinking deeply. I am still arranging the blankets as he pulls it down and says,
drinking this is not a hardship.
I smile. It's a compliment. Thanks.
Chapter 7. Jake. Tessa's hot chocolate is the best hot chocolate in the world. I know I haven't been everywhere in the world, but I'm still confident in my opinion. I've never tasted anything better, and everyone who comes to our town agrees that it's the best. It's funny that I had to get trapped under a tree to finally share a mug of it with her. She is quiet, but there's a competence about her that I definitely admire. I suppose my chatty nature and her reticent nature would probably jive pretty nicely together. I don't know why that thought creeps into my brain. Maybe I'm just trying to think of things that will distract me. You're getting wet, I say. I don't want her to catch a cold or worse because she's trying to help me.
I'm crawling under as soon as I get this tent out of the package.
I hate that you had to raid your Christmas gifts in order to help me. I'll pay you back.
Don't worry about it. This is for my niece, and she loves you. Your reindeer make her day, and she could watch them all day long. She'll be thrilled that her tent helped save your life.
That might be a little bit dramatic. I hope it is. I don't feel like I'm about to die, but I do feel cold. No doubt about it.
I don't know. I guess I feel like we can be dramatic. This is kind of unprecedented.
It's ridiculous. I don't want to be on the front page of the paper and in the town social media posts.
Jake Bilmer, the man who was trapped under the Christmas tree last night.
The reason the town has to buy a new Christmas tree, I say with a chuckle. I almost stopped you from calling 911. I want to get out of here, but as quietly as possible. She slides in behind me, and immediately I feel her warmth, especially through my jeans. They are not insulated, and I wish that I would have grabbed a pair of my insulated ones. The backs of my legs are going to be nice and toasty with hers cradled up against them.
I'm pulling the tent over,
she says. She shakes out the extra blanket and puts it under our heads. That makes it a lot more comfortable for me. Because of the way my foot is trapped, I can't adjust so that I'm not awkwardly lying on my side. And honestly, the blanket under my hip is helping a lot too. Not only is it keeping out the cold, but it's keeping my body from screaming in protest. She has the tent adjusted, and the freezing rain makes an enjoyable sound that I would love listening to if I wasn't lying on the ground underneath the tree. Of course, with Tessa beside me, it isn't so bad. She makes me feel like everything's going to be okay. Not that I was exactly worried about it, but I suppose there is a certain panic that grips a person when they can't move. I really appreciate all that you've done. I hate not being able to move.
That would be terrible. Worse than the rain or the cold. To me, anyway,
she says softly. We're quiet for a bit, but maybe I just want to talk to pass the time, or maybe I want to try to stay awake. Isn't it dangerous to fall asleep when you're in danger of hypothermia? I'm nice and warm with you pressed against me. Thank you.
You're welcome,
she says, although she stumbles a bit at the beginning of the word, almost as though she were going to say, my pleasure. For some reason, that makes me wonder about her, and without thinking, I ask, what is your boyfriend going to say? Chapter 8. Tessa.
It's a small town. Jake has to know that I don't have a boyfriend. Actually, maybe he doesn't. Maybe I'm so invisible to him that he has no idea. I, of course, know that he swore off girlfriends 5 years ago. He'd gone through 3 or 4 terrible breakups, where he got together with a girl, and then, in one case, she found someone better. In another case, she'd moved out of town, and I think 2 of them decided they didn't want to be married to a farmer. What does that say when he doesn't even know whether I have a current boyfriend, and I know his whole history? It says I'm pathetic. I don't have a boyfriend. I finally say. Maybe it's a little flat, because I'm annoyed that I know so much about him, and he doesn't even know that I'm available. Of course, if he swore off dating and girls, then I suppose that he probably isn't paying attention. Maybe he's not paying attention to anyone, and it's not just me.
I'm sorry. I guess I knew that. I was just trying to make conversation.
You don't have to apologize. You don't need to know what's going on in my personal life.
I should know everything about my rescuer. Although it's hard for me to get into this whole damsel in distress mode.
You're making a very good damsel in distress. I'm teasing, and he understands immediately because I feel him chuckle beside me. I slip my arms over his, and he seems to press back into my warmth.
I think my teeth are going to stop chattering. I really appreciate you doing this.
Maybe I should get a chainsaw and start cutting the tree.
I hate to do that. I know that we probably won't be able to get another one this nice. The tree farm has more, but they've got trees earmarked for the town to use for the next 20 years.
Trees don't get this big overnight, I say, agreeing with him. I get the feeling that he wants to chastise himself for ruining it for the town. So I say, I think it's going to be totally salvageable. I didn't see any broken branches. That doesn't mean there aren't any, but I bet if Bob Turner comes with his truss truck, he'll be able to set it up in fairly quick order. I think about leaving him and him getting cold while he waits for them to pick the tree up. I wonder if they'll allow me to stay with you while they pick it up.
They might be afraid you'll get hurt somehow.
I think they will if I insist. I really don't want him to get hypothermia.
If they suggest you not do it, it might be wise for you to listen to them.
Sometimes trusting the experts means checking one's brain at the door, and I don't believe that either. Lots of experts disagree, so that means that lots of experts are wrong, right?
I feel like you're walking a tightrope there,
he says, seeming to realize that I want to be careful about what I say. I was just thinking that experts disagree with each other, so that means that one side has to be wrong. And sometimes we just need to choose what's best for ourselves after listening to all the facts. We might choose the wrong thing, but that doesn't make us bad people.
I agree. That's part of what being American is. We don't have the government or something else telling us what to do. We can choose for ourselves, which is a God-given right from our Creator.
I think some people don't understand that. But God gave us free choice, right? He doesn't insist that we have to follow Him. We're allowed to decide for ourselves. Obviously, I feel like there's a wrong choice in that, but lots of people make it. And God allows that.
Yeah, He does. Sometimes I don't understand why, and sometimes I don't want to give the same grace that He does.
No, I want to force people to believe the way I want them to.
This seems to be human nature, because even about things that aren't religious, people want you to believe their way and get angry and call you names if you don't.
It's sad, but it happens all the time. Good people and bad people doing that.
Yeah, in our country, we can make the decision that we want to make, and we shouldn't be vilified for not agreeing with certain experts, since there are other experts who almost certainly disagree.
I didn't realize we had so much in common along these lines of thought. I've found someone who believes exactly the same way I do. I think that there should be a general consensus about morality, though. I say this cautiously, since there is a very high chance that he might disagree with me.
I agree,
he says, and I immediately relax.
I guess we used to in our country, since we have the 10 Commandments up on many of our state buildings. It seems like everyone can agree that those are general guidelines that are good no matter what you believe.
All right. I was afraid that we would disagree on that, but I see that we don't. He huffs out a breath, and it feels cozy in here. Us under the tent, getting warm, the freezing rain tapping down on our flimsy covering, but us insulated together, warm and snuggled up. I'm sorry, but this feels cozy to me, I say, and then I wish I wouldn't have.
Chapter 9. Jake. I'm actually warm. For a while there, I wasn't sure I would ever feel warm again. What do you mean? I say, because I can hardly believe that she's using the word cozy. Like she's enjoying this? I feel like she's made a huge sacrifice. She's come out in the freezing rain, literally, and is now lying on stones beside a fallen pine tree to warm up a man she barely knows, even if we've grown up in the same town and live here together.
I guess it's just the warmth and the rain, and I don't know. This is something that I've never done before, for sure.
Me either. I suppose if it were you who was trapped, I would have wanted to grab a chainsaw to rescue you right away, but I'm glad you didn't insist on that.
I've used a chainsaw before, but I'm always afraid I'm going to hurt someone, so it's probably best that we did this your way.
I already feel terrible because I knocked the tree down. I would have felt even worse if they would have had to destroy it in order to rescue me. And that's the truth. Still, I know that this is a major inconvenience for her. If you weren't here with me, what would you be doing right now? Searching social media for information on the wreck out on the interstate?
Believe it or not, I was getting ready to go to bed.
This early?
It's after 9 now, but yeah, I guess this time of year, I love to snuggle down in bed and read for an hour or two before I turn out the light and go to sleep. It's one of the best things about this time of year.
I like to read a lot more than I used to. I guess, considering that I'm stuck with the librarian, I have to say good things about reading in books.
You don't. I'm not going to excommunicate you or leave you here on the cold stones alone.
Or throw a bucket of cold water on me since I can't escape? She laughs behind me, and the sound feels good. I want to hear it some more. I have known her, but I haven't really known her. She's a lot more than what she seems.
I could let you think that I would do that, and that might help keep you in line a little bit.
Is that what you do with kids in the library? You think about things that you can do to them to keep them in line? I'm teasing her. I want to hear her laughter some more.
I don't know. Maybe you should show up at the library sometime and find out.
Maybe I'll do that. I hesitate, and then maybe it's our cozy position, the idea of privacy, or maybe it's just because she's been so good to me, but I say what I'm thinking. Going to the library just got a whole lot more appealing to me.
Oh, it did? Why is that?
She says, laughter in her voice. She doesn't realize I was serious. Because I just realized that the librarian is a whole lot more interesting and funny than what I ever thought she was.
Oh.
She's much more subdued, but her tone doesn't sound standoffish to me, and so maybe that's what encourages me to keep talking. I don't know if you heard, but I swore off dating about 5 years ago.
It was a big thing in town. And then you started getting voted the most eligible bachelor, which was probably the town's way of encouraging you to get back into the dating pool.
It might have been, but the main reason I did it was because I had trouble finding someone who was steady and dependable and good in a crisis, like when trees fall on top of a person. She did laugh at that. I was joking a bit, but I was also serious.
Well, I suppose you're still looking for someone like that,
she finally says. I don't know. I've gone to great lengths to try to weed out the bad actors, and I think I might have been successful. I don't know what I'm saying. Am I hinting that I'm interested in dating her?
Well, success is a good thing, I guess,
she says, although she sounds a little confused. I've spent 5 years not dating, but I spent that time watching people, seeing how they react to things, truly trying to figure out what I had done wrong that I had been with so many women who hadn't wanted to stick. I thought for sure that I would be married by this time in my life, had hoped for it. But it wasn't because of me. It was because of everyone I was with who seemed to decide that they didn't want to be with me after a rather short time. So short it was almost embarrassing.
I see. So that's why you got a little quieter?
She asks. You noticed? I say, surprised.
I guess I have.
I thought I was being brave by admitting that I might be interested in more, but it sounds like she's saying the same thing. I could be wrong, but it sure seems that way. My heart starts beating a little faster, and even my toes are warm now. I wanted to figure out what I was doing wrong, and I did find a few things in myself that I needed to correct.
It's always good to work on ourselves,
she says. I agree completely, and I like that we both think that way. But I also think a part of what I was doing was I was choosing women based on how they looked, based on superficial things. I wasn't looking beneath the surface at the things that matter.
I think a lot of times the things that matter are things that we don't value as a society.
Things like character and integrity and keeping your word, being devoted and not being sidetracked by things that look better.
Those are things you have to observe. You can't have someone just tell you that they're going to do something. You have to look and see whether their actions back up their words or not.
That's exactly right. As I say that, I'm thinking back. Tessa has been faithful to her job since she started it, just 2 years out of high school. I didn't pay a lot of attention to the library getting a new librarian at the time, but she's been a quiet worker in the town all that time. Exactly the kind of person that I want. It's funny that I thought for the last 5 years I was doing a good job of observing, but somehow I missed Tessa completely. Chapter 10. Tessa.
I kind of thought there for a moment that he was hinting that he wanted to ask me out. I'm not sure. Maybe he's just being lulled into complacency by the cozy nest that we've made for ourselves. Don't get me wrong. The ground is still really, really hard. I can feel a little bit of coldness seeping up through the blanket. But having a blanket there is better than nothing, and I'm pretty much warm all over. I hope he is too. He's not shivering anymore, but I know that can be a bad thing, because I think that's the next stage as a person dips down into hypothermia. But I think he's not shivering because he's warm, not because he's getting colder.
I thought I was doing a good job of observing, but somehow I missed you.
I'm easy to miss. I'm quiet. I don't usually kick up a big fuss about much of anything, and I just try to see where I can be helpful and throw in with everything I can.
You help your family, you help the town, and I don't think being a librarian can pay very much, yet you've been faithful to your job.
And I have no interest in getting another one. You're right. I'll probably never own a nice farm on the edge of town. I will always live in an apartment near the town square, something I can afford.
I wouldn't say never.
His words have a ring of fortune in them, and I'm not sure I understand. I suppose you're right. It's not a good idea to say never.
Sometimes God has plans for us that shock us when we figure out what they are.
He shocked me more than a few times, I say, knowing that God really has twisted my life up in ways I never expected.
In what way?
He asks, sounding truly interested. I direct the church Christmas plays every year. We have 4 of them, and I never thought I would do that. I mean, I'm kind of quiet, and I don't like to get up in front of people, but it was something that the town needed, and no one else was stepping up to do it.
So you did it.
He says, as though he's already figured out that's part of my personality. People don't step up, so I do it. It doesn't matter how bad the job or how unqualified I am, I figure something out.
I can look back and see. Isn't it funny how hindsight is so much better than even me sitting there observing, thinking I'm getting all this new insight, when really what I wanted was under my nose the entire time and I did not see it.
What he wanted? And what was that? I say, feeling like I might understand what he's trying to say, but not sure.
I was looking for someone just like you. I was observing all of these other women, thinking I was being so smart, and all that time, you were there.
He pauses for a moment, then he says,
Don't take that the wrong way. I'm not trying to insinuate now that I've decided that you are exactly what I want, everything is settled. I understand that I might not be what you want, but I can at least use you as a pattern, as an example, a yardstick, so to speak, to anyone else I notice.
That doesn't sound very romantic, I say, although I want to say, no, I've had a crush on you for years. This is the best news I've had in decades, that you might be interested in me. I don't want to sound so desperate.
It doesn't, does it? I guess I was all about romance for a long time, and I still think romance is a good thing. But maybe it's better to have romance between a husband and wife than between two people who may or may not end up married. Does that make sense?
That sounds radical. I've never heard of anyone saying anything like that before. Of course, romance is important between people who are interested in each other. How else will they figure out whether they want to be married or not?
By looking for those things that aren't as easily seen. By looking for character and integrity. And by figuring out that they share the same values and morals, and that building a life together is something that they can see each other doing.
No attraction? No secret smiles and flirty laughs?
I suppose there can be those kinds of things, too. But can't you do that after you're married?
I suppose you can, but I think women especially aren't going to be down with the idea that they're just going to coldly choose someone.
And yet, for a lot of human history, marriages were arranged. People were simply put together and then had to figure out how to make a marriage work.
I'd like to say we've come a long way since then, but maybe attraction isn't the best way to figure that out. He's quiet for a moment, and I love that he seems to be thinking about what I said. I talk to so many people who seem to be forming their rebuttals to the conversation before the speaker is even done speaking. But Jake listens, at least to me.
I think women are different from men. I know that's not profound,
he adds as I grunt.
But I guess I just don't need to be wooed in any way. And again, that might have to do with all of my failed relationships. I want to know I am with someone who's going to stick by me, no matter what. I feel like as long as our values and morals are aligned, we can work out everything else. As long as we're committed to staying together and breaking up isn't an option.
Now it's my turn to be quiet. I just thought to myself how much I appreciate how he thought about what I said, so shouldn't I do the same for him? It's that do unto others thing. And I think I get what he's saying. He's saying that while he's not completely dismissing the idea of attraction, he thinks it's important to find someone who's committed to making a relationship last a lifetime. The idea is novel, but I don't dislike it.
The romance would happen after the marriage. I feel like that's something that keeps a relationship alive, something that keeps it interesting.
And that is something I can get on board with, too. You mean like married couples dating? I say, thinking I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, you agree to a lifetime commitment, and then you agree to nourish your relationship, however that looks. Some people don't like to go out, so maybe a date would look like sitting in front of the fire with hot chocolate, looking at Christmas tree lights in the corner and holding hands. Or maybe it would look like a long weekend at a ski resort. Or maybe it would look like both. If one person loves to go out and one person doesn't, it's compromising.
I feel like you should be some kind of relationship counselor. He laughs.
That's the first time anyone's ever said something like that to me. Ever. I seem to be the king of failed relationships.
He pauses.
Isn't that what the town's most eligible bachelor means? That basically I can't find anyone to stick with me.
I had never considered it like that. I just thought he was popular and had everything put together. Now, of course, I admire his hard work, admire his contributions to the town, like tonight. Everyone else is either inside because of the weather or on I-80 at the accident. But Jake is in the town square, decorating the Christmas tree by himself, since no one else showed up. How can a girl not admire that? I haven't gotten a chance to say anything more when we hear noises, and Jake says,
I think our rescuers have arrived.
It sounds like a truck rumbling, people talking, and the next thing I know, a corner of our little cocoon has been lifted, and someone is looking in.
I heard Jake Bilmer was trapped under the tree. Jake, is that you?
A deep voice, it sounds like Bob Turner, speaks as the cold air slithers underneath and reminds me that my warmth was only temporary.
Tessa's with me,
Jake says. I was wondering how I was going to explain that, but he saves me.
She found me, brought me blankets, and protected me from the weather, while snuggling up to me so I didn't get hypothermia. It's actually not bad under here. I suppose there aren't too many guys who would turn down being snuggled up to Tessa. She's a keeper. I know that,
Jake says, his voice a little lower, like he's thinking about that. It makes me a bit uncomfortable, and I start to move. Jake's hand lands on my leg. It's the first time he's touched me. Bob has turned to talk to someone else, and Jake's head turns a bit toward me. He's not looking at me since he can't twist that far around, but he says,
Thank you. I really appreciate what you did for me tonight. All right, Jake, let's get you out of here. I've got my truck in position, but I didn't want to run over you. I have to adjust a bit, and then we'll get this tree lifted off.
Bob Turner's voice is no nonsense, like he's done this 1,000,000 times before. It is true that he's worked in more complicated situations than setting a Christmas tree up.
Let's get Tessa out of there. In case branches fall off, we don't want her to get hit.
George Galloway pulls down the other side of our blankets and holds his hand out for me.
You're not stuck, are you?
He says as I grasp a hold of his hand, shaking my head. I murmur a thank you as he helps me out. Then I gather up the blankets that were on Jake as they put some protective boards over top of him in case branches fall off the tree, and I stand on the sidelines as Bob maneuvers the truck to the tree, gets out, and uses the boom on the back to lift it up, and then medics immediately descend on Jake and his leg to make sure that he's okay. I know I should go back to my warm, cozy apartment. I'm cold, and my work here is done, such as it was. I highly doubt he would have died, but maybe they would have taken him to the hospital to be treated for mild hypothermia. As it is, I think he's going to be released with no issues. Instead of going home, I'm sitting in the pavilion, one of the blankets I brought wrapped around me, my hot chocolate still in my hands, as he walks gingerly on the leg that has been under the tree. It's amazing that he isn't hurt. I say a small prayer of thanks, and then I try to convince myself that whatever little bit of personal connection we shared is over.
Chapter 11. Jake. I know I should be extremely happy that I've been rescued and I'm no longer trapped underneath the Christmas tree. And honestly, I am. Being trapped really stinks, although I'm grateful I wasn't hurt. But Tessa made it so much nicer, and talking to her was a breath of fresh air. I realize I should have noticed her a long time ago and regret the wasted time. But there's no better time than the present, and I'm eager for the medics to declare me totally fine. I see her over in the pavilion. She was chatting with some ladies for a while, then she sat wrapped in one of the blankets, almost as though she wanted to make sure that I was okay before she went home. I want a chance to talk to her. I'm not sure which apartment she lives in, and I want to talk to her tonight. I don't want too much time to go by before we follow up on the conversation we had. It seems to me that she might have been interested in what I was proposing. It's the first time I've said that without people pretty much running away in horror and telling me I was an idiot. And I admit, the conversation we had might not be for everyone. But after my terrible experiences, maybe I just want to try something different. Something where I know that the commitment is real before I put my soul into it. Not that I'm afraid to work, because I'm not. And Tessa is the kind of girl that is totally worth it. At the very least, I want to thank her again. I would not be walking around completely warm and happy if it hadn't been for her. The freezing rain is still coming down, but they put enough ash and salt down that no one is slipping around as they stand the Christmas tree back up. And while there was one branch that broke off, you can't tell, and it looks amazing, just like it did before. I shake hands with the mayor and first responders, and then I look back at the pavilion where Tessa had been sitting. She's gone. I check my watch. It's almost midnight. But I don't want to let this opportunity go. I know I should wait until tomorrow, but she said she lived above the Christmas shop. Surely I can find her apartment. My leg does hurt. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not broken, and it's going to be fine. I've been hurt worse on the farm. That brings me up short. She hadn't said anything about not wanting to marry a farmer. I've heard that some women have certain occupations they don't want to marry into, policeman being one. And I did have a girlfriend who broke up with me because she didn't want to be a farmer's wife. It just wasn't prestigious enough. Tessa doesn't seem like that kind of girl, but the only time I really talked to her was tonight when I was trapped under the Christmas tree. Well, I'm going to ask her. I look across the town square. Her apartment is right over there. I can see the Christmas shop, and there are 4 windows above it. I assume the owner of the Christmas shop lives in one apartment, and Tessa lives in the other. 2 of the windows have a light on, 2 are dark. Wouldn't Tessa's be the ones that are lit? She had said that she was ready for bed, even admitted to having her jammies on. I'm torn. Should I? Should I not? That was a close call, Jake. My friend Daniel says. He's the younger brother of the local billionaire. I know, not all small towns have local billionaires, but Christmas Tree does. He owns the mansion on top of the hill, and I've always thought that Daniel had a hard job, being the brother of someone who was so super successful. Daniel is just a run-of-the-mill, ordinary guy like me. He is employed by his brother, but his issue with the ladies is the fact that anyone he brings home sees his older brother and immediately wants to ditch Daniel for the rich brother. It's probably not as close as what you think. It's not like the tree was going to fall on top of me. From what I understand, it did. Wasn't it sitting on your leg? All right, technically it did fall on top of me, but I wasn't really in any danger. Maybe I was, but I don't want to think about it. So you were with Tessa, Daniel says, and there's a note in his voice that makes me look at him. We've often bemoaned the pathetic nature of our love lives, although I probably spend more time complaining to him that his brother isn't around more. If his brother was, I wouldn't have been crowned the most eligible bachelor in town. That honor would go to him. Although Daniel is probably my stiffest competition. Not that I wouldn't give him the crown in a heartbeat. I would rather not have it at all. Yeah, she was pretty awesome. Did you tell her that? Daniel asks, and there's something in his eyes that makes me narrow my eyes at him. I thanked her. And? I don't have to talk to my friend. We're happy working side by side for hours at a time and never exchanging a word. But something, maybe the romantic in me who wants to see if the feeling that I got from Tessa was serious, makes me say, and I'd like to say more. I got the feeling that she would too, but it's late. The light's on in her apartment, Romeo, Daniel says, looking at the windows over the Christmas shop. Am I the only one in town who doesn't know where Tessa lives? She's a keeper, Daniel says, and I know exactly what he means. He doesn't have to tell me to go. He doesn't even have to say anything more. I just look at him, jerk my head, and walk across the street. Chapter 12. Tessa.
I stick around until I am sure that the medics have cleared him and he isn't going to the hospital. He is still talking to people, including 2 ladies from town who seem to be a lot more interested in flirting with him than they are in whether or not he's okay. That is the deciding factor that makes me stand up and walk back to my apartment with my 2 empty mugs of hot chocolate and my blankets and tent. The Christmas gifts that are no longer brand new and beautiful. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do with them, but it doesn't really matter. Sure, my librarian's salary is minuscule, but I think I can afford to buy a couple extra Christmas gifts. I'll just have to knock down my personal book budget. I'm a little keyed up, so I end up making myself some more hot chocolate after taking a hot shower and changing into fresh, cozy jammies. I don't know why, but I always make enough hot chocolate for 2. I should have cut everything in half and just made 1 cup. I'm definitely not going to be drinking 2 before I go to sleep tonight. I'm standing in the kitchen, cozy socks on my feet, pouring my hot chocolate into a clean, fresh mug, and planning to lie in bed and look at the Christmas lights I had put in my window with a book I'm half finished with, when there's a knock at the door. My apartment isn't big enough for a full-size tree, so I have a small one in my living room, and that and the Christmas lights in my bedroom are my nod to Christmas decorating. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Who could be knocking at my door? Are they investigating the incident? Do the cops need my statement? Surely they would have asked while I was sitting down there. Christmas Tree is a small town. It doesn't even occur to me that the person outside my door might be some kind of murderer. I go and realize I never even locked it after I walked in. I could have just called out for them to come in since it was open. I shake my head. I probably should be a little bit more careful. I'm going to end up as a headline one of these days. I open the door, and I almost close it immediately. I'm so surprised. Jake is standing on the other side.
Tessa, I'm sorry. I know it's late. Did I get you up?
He seems concerned, and he also seems to be rambling as the words trip off his tongue one after the other. His nervousness makes me smile. "Come on in. I just made hot chocolate,"
"I'll never turn down your hot chocolate,"
he says, stepping inside. I notice that he's favoring one leg. "Your leg must hurt. You're limping a bit."
"I don't mean to be. It twinges. After all, there was a tree lying on it for several hours this evening, but it's not terrible."
I close the door and we're in the kitchen. I don't have to invite him anywhere. My apartment is postage stamp size, and it just got a lot smaller with the large man who walked in. "I like to hear that. I was concerned you just didn't realize how badly you were hurt."
"I suppose that was a possibility, but I've been walking on it now for a while. They wanted to take x-rays, but it seems silly since there's no reason."
He pauses as I step to the stove and pour the rest of the hot chocolate in a second cup I grab from the cupboard.
"But that's not the reason I'm here."
"Okay," I say cautiously. I want to know what he's doing there.
"I'm here because I didn't want to wait until tomorrow to talk to you. First, to thank you."
"You already did. I didn't do anything anyone else wouldn't have done," I say as I set the pan down and snap the lid on his cup.
"I don't know about that, but I am grateful."
I hand him the cup, and his hand wraps around it, his fingers overlapping mine. Normally, I would pull my fingers away, but my eyes cut to his, and I get the feeling that he's touching my fingers on purpose.
"But I guess being there with you for several hours made me realize that the perfect woman, the kind of woman I've always wanted, actually does exist."
That makes my lip curve up. It sounds like a line.
"I'm sorry, that sounded terrible."
He shakes his head, and somehow he ends up with the mug of hot chocolate, and my hand drops to my side. "I guess it did sound like a line," I say. I feel cautious. Jake has so much experience in this area, and I have basically none. I've never really dated, although I've been asked out a few times, but it's never led to anything. Mostly because I don't do a whole lot of talking, and when I'm out, I do even less. I know the fault is mine. Somehow.
"It wasn't. I promise. I realized as we were there that—"
He shakes his head again.
"Let me just say, I like you. I really like you. I realized tonight what kind of character you have and what kind of person you are. I thought about the way you interacted with this town over the last dozen years or so, and—"
He trails off while I'm hanging on his every word. Finally, I say, "Let's go sit down." It feels out of place, like I should set my hot chocolate down, wrap my arms around him, and say, "I feel the same way about you. I really like you too." Or something like that, but I don't. Obviously. Instead, I ruin the moment by saying we should go sit down. I turn to the living room, where I have 2 small recliners.
"I think I'd rather dance,"
Jake says, and I stop abruptly. "Dance?" I say, turning slowly to look at him, my head tilted. He nods.
"I think it will be good for my leg. It would help it work out the kinks."
"All right," I say, not exactly sure whether he's got all of his marbles or not. "Are you sure the tree didn't hit you on the head?"
"I'm sure."
He gives me a smile. That charming, irresistible, gorgeous smile that I've admired from afar for years. But he's giving it to me. Me, right here in my living room. And he's asked me to dance. I set my hot chocolate down on the table, and I take his from him. Maybe it's my imagination, but his fingers trail over my wrist. I don't know how he manages to do that, but I think he did it on purpose. He doesn't look me in the eye, though, because he has his hand out for my phone, and when I hand it to him, he pulls up some Christmas music. It's slow and sweet, and he sets the phone down on the coffee table beside our hot chocolate. And then he straightens up and looks straight into my eyes. It feels like he's looking the whole way into my soul. I shiver, and his words curl around me as he says,
"Shall we dance?"
For some reason, the lines from The King and I ripple through my head, and I feel that same anticipation as he walks slowly toward me, his hand out, palm up, inviting me to put my hand in his, as his other hand goes around my waist. I'm in my jammies, for goodness sake, and now I'm dancing with the most eligible bachelor in Christmas tree, in my living room. I feel like someone needs to pinch me, I say.
"I don't think you need to be pinched,"
he says, pulling me close, his hands warm and firm on my back, as my other hand slides into his. His is calloused and rough and so very, very warm and confident. Somehow my head ends up tucked under his chin, and my cheek rests on his chest. I've never done anything like this before, I say. I want to pinch myself again, this time to get myself to shut up.
"I like hearing that,"
he says.
"I suppose you won't believe me if I tell you I've never done anything like this either. But it would probably be even more unbelievable if I say I have a feeling I'm going to look back on this night as the best night of my life." Chapter 13. Jake. That was a bold statement, and maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. But she feels perfect. She fits perfectly against me, and she feels so soft and sweet in my arms. And I lay my head on top of hers and wonder how I can get these words out. How do I tell her that in the last 3 hours, I think I've fallen in love? Especially when I was rambling on about how I didn't think romance was important, and I didn't say in so many words that love wasn't necessary for marriage. But as short of a time as it's been, this didn't start out with feelings. It started out with me knowing what kind of person she is and then not wanting to let her go.
"Why is that?"
she asks, and I remember my bold statement. It's true. I think I'm going to look back on this night as the best night of my life. I swallow, my throat suddenly dry, as I lean back to look at her. Somehow I have to be unafraid, to put my feelings out there, to organize my thoughts and the ideas that I have swirling in my head and round them up into some kind of rational sentence, something that's not going to scare her completely away. "I admire your willingness to come out in the freezing rain and help me. I know you think that anyone would have done it, but I don't know if that's true. I appreciate the fact that you respected me when you said I didn't want the tree to be cut. You showed your character tonight, and I found it to be beautiful. I also thought that we agreed on a lot of things, one of those being that a relationship should be based on values and morals and a commitment to stay together forever. I've had some time to think. When you're trapped under a tree, that happens." My words make her smile, and that's what I wanted.
"And?"
she prompts. We're still swaying to the music, and I still have my hand on her back. It slides up slowly. I feel her warmth and the suppleness of her skin under my palm. And I was hoping that you might be interested in exploring that potential with me. That sounded very formal. I like you. In fact, the idea that I'm falling in love with you is crazy, I know, but it feels real. I was hoping you might feel the same way. But I just wanted you to know that I'm not interested in a relationship just to have a good time. I'm looking at a lifetime thing. Did I scare you away? I get the words out, and now my heart is beating like crazy, and I can hardly breathe as she looks up at me, expressions flitting across her face so fast I can't read them.
You think you might be falling in love with me?
She asks, although her tone does not say disbelief. It sounds more like wonder. I nod. Yes. The word comes out low and heavy, and it hangs there as she thinks about it. This is the most vulnerable I've ever felt in my life before, and for some reason, her reaction seems to be more important to me than anything else. Could she possibly feel the same? The song shifts, something a little faster, but we don't start moving in time to the music. We continue to sway, and now her hands are on my shoulders. I think I feel one finger running along my neck. It sends a burst of heat from my head all the way to my toes and back. If I needed to be warmed up, all I need is Tessa's finger on my skin, apparently.
Maybe this is a good time for me to admit that I've had a crush on you for years?
She asks, her head tilted, and there's a little bit of insecurity on her face. I realize I'm not the only one who's being vulnerable right now. That makes me want her even more. The fact that she's willing to meet me halfway, even further, since I know exactly how difficult it is to be vulnerable, especially in this area. But her words surprise me. Me? I question. She smiles a soft smile. It makes her entire face glow with a beauty that shines from a heart that is pure.
You're the most eligible bachelor in Christmas Tree, 3 years running.
Oh, goodness, I'm never going to live that down. I drop my head and shake it, but her words have still made my toes curl in my boots. She has a crush on me. She even noticed me. I guess she's saying, how could she not notice me? The whole town has held me up as the most eligible bachelor.
I never thought you'd be in my living room. Never thought you'd be saying these things to me. It feels like I'm in a dream. Are you sure this is real?
She says, and her smile hasn't wavered, but she seems to be asking me seriously. It's real. It's definitely real. But I'm also being straight up honest with you when I say that I'm not messing around. I don't want to play at this. I don't want this to be something we do for 6 months and then call it quits. Do you know me well enough to think you can make a decision like that? She huffs out a breath and looks to the side.
I've known you forever. I've watched you forever. I guess I really have trouble finding anything to fault with you, other than the fact that you don't visit the library nearly enough.
Now I think she's flirting with me. I laugh at her. I'll make a commitment right now to visit the library every day for the next 365 days. At least once. I might go there morning and evening, I'm not sure.
Every day, even on the days it's closed.
I might have to break in. Perhaps I know someone with the keys who can help me out in my quest.
The library is a very romantic place.
That is a good place for a married couple to have a date night, I say, and her eyes light up. I don't mean to charm her, but I'm pretty sure that's what is happening. I feel her softening in my arms, if that's even possible.
I know you're joking, but I think you just said the magic words.
I knew if I kept talking, eventually I'd stumble on something that resonated. Then I shake my head. I'm totally joking. If you want to go to the library, I'll spend hours at the library with you. But you do know that I'm a farmer first.
My little dream, the one that I think will never come true, is to have a farm on the outside of town. I guess I kind of thought I was destined to live above the Christmas shop for the rest of my life.
Not if I have anything to do with it. That dream of living on a farm on the outskirts of town will most definitely come true, if this goes the way I hope it's going to.
I'm in,
she says, looking up at me with sincerity in her eyes.
I've known you forever. We went to school together. I've seen you around town. I know your reputation. I don't have to think about this. I'm in. For life, if that's what you want.
I want it to be what you want, too. I don't want to be the only one pushing for this.
I guess I don't have to worry about not having those feelings, because I do. I have them for you. I guess I can only hope that someday you have them for me, too.
Oh, I'm feeling the feelings. I'm definitely feeling the feelings. But I think the feelings fade, and I want to have a foundation that we can build upon for the rest of our lives. I want you to know that I'll protect you with my life, that I'll give everything I have for you and for the family we create.
And I'll devote just as much to you and to our family.
They feel like vows, the things we just said. And how else do you seal vows except with a kiss? I start to lower my head, but I know this is kind of fast. Is it okay if I kiss you? I whisper, and I'm not looking at her, I'm looking at her lips. The ones that distracted me from the very first moment I saw her this evening.
Please,
she says, and I think that's better than a yes. My head lowers and our lips meet, and I forget about vows and trees and even Christmas. All I think about is Tessa, and that I'm pretty sure she said I could be doing this for the rest of my life. I can't think of anything better. I lift my head, my breath coming hard, as I look into her eyes. You should have warned me, is the only thing I can think of to say. Her brows draw down.
About what?
She says, sounding concerned. How good you are. I think that I better go. That was the stuff of dreams. She smiles, like my words please her.
Why don't we try one more time? Then I want to know that I'm going to see you tomorrow before you leave tonight.
You'll be seeing me. I was serious about showing up at the library. I'm pretty sure that wherever you are, that's where I will be too. Then I lower my head and do what my sweet Tessa asked and kiss her again. Hi, this is Jay, and thanks for listening. If you're ready for another great Jessie Gussman audiobook, here's one we think you might like. Or check out our latest releases. Don't forget to subscribe to Say with Jay, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us what you liked in the comments.